Hello everyone, so I'm starting off a new tutorial series. It's going to be about first-person shooters, how to do everything in it, including how to do a puppet first person and how to do a standard or like industry first person, which is the template that Media Molecule has out right now. So I'm probably going to be going over the movements in camera first, and then I'll be doing the gun mechanics like shooting and reloading. And then I'll probably get down to finer things like animation. So when we reload, it plays an animation instead of just refilling our clip, and all that nice good stuff. Alright, I will see you in the video. Hello everyone, and welcome to the part 2 of the FPS tutorial. Today we're going to be going over how to do gun mechanics, like actually having the gun fire, being able to aim, having an ammo count, and being able to pick up more ammunition, and all that kind of good stuff, damaging enemies and stuff. So why don't we set up the scene actually. So we'll make an enemy, and we're just going to get out another puppet. And do that. It's in our gadgets menu, in our gameplay gear, and let's just get out a blank basic puppet. And what we're gonna do is, right now, we're going to turn on the enemy label, which is foe. And I'm gonna go into the puppet. I'm gonna scope inside of it. I'm gonna select major body parts, such as the head, neck, torso, chest, and hips, as well as the legs and the arms. And I'm going to open the properties panel, and I'm going to label these as target. Now that they're labeled as target, let's go over to the collision labels, and we only want to collide with missile and weapon. And we want to make them collidable. As you can see, he's still acting fine. That didn't really mess with anything. So now we are going to... This is a gun model that I had found on the Dreamverse, and I have gone ahead and done some quality of life improvements by making some changes to the group. So when you find it in the Dreamverse, it's probably going to end up in your scene as a group. And I want you to ungroup it. And as you can see, we have the body here, the magazine, we have a spent casing and a round, and the fired bullet. Now, what we're going to want to do is probably take the magazine and the weapon away, and we're going to be working with this bullet here in a second. I just want to show you the last part of this group is in this body. You can scope in, and you get to move the movable parts, which would be this rail here, and this is also movable, but I'm not sure if we're going to be incorporating that into the reloading animation and firing animation when we do that. So let's go ahead and scope out with L1 and circle. Make sure you are scoped out, and we're going to work on this bullet here. So we're going to place a microchip on the side. We're going to snap it to it with L1. And what we're going to do here is we're going to add a impact sensor, a health modifier, and a destroyer. And we're going to take the currently modifying output of the health modifier and the bumps of the impact sensor and plug it into the destroyer. Now what this is going to do, if we deal damage to anything really that this is able to hit, or we hit something like the ground or a wall, we will destroy ourselves. So that way it's going to look like the bullet hit the thing. And what we're going to do on this impact sensor is we're going to have it detect impact with everything except for foe. And this health modifier is going to detect everything. It's going to detect nothing but targets. So that way, this is going to sense hitting the actual body parts of the puppet and not the puppet's collision shape. Yep, that will work. And let's see if we get this to work. And you can notice if we play time, it's not gonna pop up. Now I'm going to place down an emitter, and we're going to get the bullet over here. Go ahead and drag this over, and we're basically going to use this to test if we can kill or hit the puppet with this bullet. Go ahead and rotate it if you want, so it's properly hitting it. Alright, we're going to go ahead and play time. Okay, you can see it passes through. Now this is probably because oh, you know what? I think we didn't make the bullet itself a missile. Yeah, we want to label the bullet as a missile. Oh, this isn't collidable. That's what's happening. Yep. There we go. I guess the bullet that was part of that object was not collidable. So I'm going to probably change that in the object that you get, so you guys don't have to go through that. Let me see. You can hit the head. Yep. As you can see now, we are able to hit everything except for the hands. And this way, we get a more accurate collision than just a enlarged capsule around the puppet. Right? So now that we have that out of the way, let's see here. So we have our gun, and we have this. So what you're probably going to want to do is actually group the gun with the magazine. And the reason why we're doing this now instead of having it published this way is because you're actually going to want a copy of this magazine later for the reload animation. That is going to be in part 3. Alright, so now what we need is we need a very small cube. So we're going to go ahead and make one of those. And we're going to want to place a microchip somewhere on this gun. Preferably somewhere where it would be visible if it was being held. So let's put it on the butt of the gun. Or the butt, I think that's what it's called. And go ahead and just name it Gun Logic, I guess. Alright. And now on here, we need a tag, and what we're going to do is we're going to make it so what the player aims at is going to be what this gun shoots at. Instead of just firing forward, we are going to fire in the direction of what we're aiming at. This way, we don't just completely not shoot at a target from the target in the center of the screen. So what we need is a tag, and that would be in your sensors and input section. I'm going to grab a tag. We're going to name it gun tip. And we're going to put that at the very tip of our barrel. We can go ahead and turn on precise move if you'd like. It doesn't matter. The orientation really doesn't matter because we are not going to be using that for now. But you kind of want to get the position as close as possible as where, like pretty much where you're going to be spawning your bullet. Once you get that down, we are going to we're going to copy this and we're going to make gun tip 2. Or gun tip forward is actually what we're going to call it. Gun tip forward. And this is needed because if we do not hit something, like our look, if our target is like somewhere in the middle of nowhere, like if the middle of your screen is just pointed out into space, we don't want the thing that lets us look around or aim around and hit things properly. We don't want it to aim at 0, 0, 0, because if we don't hit anything, the aim is going to be coordinates 0, 0, 0. And that would mean that we're going to be aiming towards the origin of the world, which is this. So if you're like somewhere halfway across the map, your gun would probably shoot into you, and you don't want that. Alright, and now that we have these two things, we are going to make a button from sensors and switch from sensors and input. And we're going to call this, let's see, emit or fire sequence, or just fire. I'll name it fire. And this is what is going to be spawning all of our things that spawn when we shoot a bullet. So that would be a bullet and a casing. And we're going to set this emitter's property. And emitter is in the output, movers and output section. And you're going to get that and place that down. And we want to call it bullet. And we're going to set it to emit once. Time between emits is 0. And this emit speed we're going to play around with later, but for now we're going to set it to 10. Max emitted at once, let's do 40. And we're going to set the object to emit to be that bullet that we made earlier. Alright. And go ahead and hook up this on-off output to the bullet and copy this emitter. And we're going to rename this emitter to spent casing. And again, we're going to hook up the fire switch onto this emitter. Go ahead and turn off the switch if it's not turned off already. But this one we're going to set to recycle emitted objects. And the object to emit is going to be that spent casing that came with the weapon. Alright. And we're going to take this bullet and we're going to put this at the tip of a gun. And if you want to see the bullet, you have to open up the properties panel. And that will help you a lot better than just selecting it. Alright, that's the original. We want to move the emitted one. Yep. And that arrow is going to be the direction where it shoots. And we don't need to really play with that, because that's what's going to be done through logic. Doesn't really need to be perfect unless your gun is really zoomed into your face, where you can see the tip very easily. Right, and there you go. That's what it's going to look like when it comes out of our gun. And then our spent casing, we are going to put that. Oh, spent casing. Yeah, we're going to put that to the right of our weapon, right next to that metal slider, and that is where it ejects spent casings. So we're going to go ahead and place it here, about right here. And we're going to make this arrow point to the right. Doesn't have to be perfect, because we want it to look like it's being forcibly ejected. And we're going to crank up that rotation speed quite a bit, maybe 130. Turn down the emit speed to 3.5. Alright, and now if we play, yeah, you can see that's a bit too fast, isn't it? Also, we need to make this spent casing collidable and movable, so it's affected by gravity and everything else. And we'll see if that looks any better. Nope, that's still way too fast, so you can bring this down maybe to 1.5. See if that works any better. It kind of looks like the casing is not affected by gravity, so let's see if it is. No, it is set to... It's not set to ignore gravity. It's collidable, visible, movable. Oh, it is set to ignore gravity. Yeah, turn that off. Alright, now let's see how it looks. There it goes. Maybe we want a little bit more kick on that rotation still. And we're gonna actually skew it kind of like this. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I like that. Alright, and we're also going to want to probably play sound effects when we fire a gun, aren't we? So in order to get sound effects pretty easily, we can go into modes, sound mode, and we're going to search for sound effects. And if you're already in something, you can hop on out. And you're going to want to search for maybe rifle. This one works. And we're going to place this down. Put that down there. And we're also going to get one last emitter, and we're going to do a quick art tutorial. I'm going to copy the bullet emitter, because that's the one we're going to use. Or the position that we're going to use. And we're going to turn down the emit speed to 0. And we're going to turn down the max emitted at once to be like 10. And we're going to recycle emitted objects. And what we want to do is we want to make a muzzle flash. So we are going to scope out of sound mode if you're still in that. And let's go into paint mode. You're probably going to want to use a really streaky one, so you can use straight or hatching maybe. So I'm going to do straight. Make it pretty small. And you're probably going to want to make sure that your camera is positioned correctly before you start painting, or else you're not going to have a good time. Alright, now you can see that it's right at the tip of the barrel, and we're going to make this pretty small, like really small. And this is going to be the big straight line that comes out from the front. So what we're going to do is we can change the color to what you want it to be. I'm going to go with an orange. You can go with a white or something else if you want, like a different color if you're using like a space gun. And I'm just going to draw a straight line. So I'm going to use the rule flex tool because I don't want any rotation with this. Want it a bit longer than that. And I'm gonna do another one, and we're gonna be doing like a cross pattern or cross shape like this. Maybe some small ones coming out. And we can go ahead and move these if you're not happy with the position. That's what I'm going to do, because I want it to look like it's coming out from right there. And I also want to give it some rotation. Camera's way too fast sometimes. I wish the DualShock had the same camera capabilities as the Move sometime. Ooh, Jesus. Okay, come on. And then we're going to move these into place. And we are going to add a few in here, a few more in here, a few extras. Some just random ones scattered about. It's going to give us a nice scattered effect. Then you can scope out, and we are going to give it a glow like this, and then we're going to go over to stroke properties. We're going to fade it out, and we also want to give it lots of ruffle, lots of impasto, some looseness as well, and you can modify this as much as you want. Want more impasto. Kind of looks like I need another one of these on this side. And the reason why we're making a muzzle flash is because the only muzzle flash out there prevents creations from being published as remixable, which is very, very it's a pretty bad shame. We're going to move the fleck density down a bit, maybe ruffle it up a bit more. And change the endpoint maybe. Don't want to duplicate it, but we do want to playback, and we want to set that to pulse, no loop. Up the trail length a bit, and probably even faster than that. Maybe a bit slower. That looks good to me. And then we're going to go ahead and emit that. In the same spot as the bullet. I'm going to go ahead and call this Muzzle Flash. Would you look at that? We got a nice firing gun now. We're going to add on to this later, but for now, let's go ahead and get this attached to our player. And we are going to do it in a simple style where we just attach it to the hand. So I'm going to turn off the precise move, and I'm going to pick it up and take it into the puppet group And then I'm gonna scope into the hand. This makes a new group with the hand, with our gun. And go ahead and put it in here like this. So he's holding it. Make sure he's holding it decently straight. Alright. And like that. And now our puppet is holding a gun. Would you look at that? I would never thought I'd see the day where I'd see a gun in a Media Molecule game. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Now we're going to open up our puppet logic, and what we want to do is we are going to make a animation controller, and this is kind of going to blend in with next episode. This is going to be our starting off, and the reason why we're doing this is because we need to make it so we can aim up and down, and we also want to be able to fire the gun. So what we're going to do is we are going to, first of all, I'm going to make a keyframe, and with this keyframe I'm just going to set the position of the puppet's hands, and this is going to be a default pose that we can go back to later, because what we're going to do is, in my previous tutorials I've said in order to blend keyframes properly, like if you want to crouch and aim at the same time, you need to rotate, and you can't use the IK. Well, I did know of a trick then, and I forgot about it, and I tried to show it off wrong, and then I just said, oh, I guess they removed it. But no, I found out how to do it. So basically, you have this default pose, and what we're going to do is we're going to position the puppet's arms into the space that we want them in, and we're going to be doing a standard aim pose. And once we have it in that pose, we are going to animate the pose with rotation only in a keyframe. And that's going to allow us to get a easier time positioning this gun, and it's also going to make it so we can blend keyframes properly. And we probably want it to look somewhat forward. You can, if you want to, you can play time and actually take a look at the camera we have here to guide the positioning of your placement of the gun. That looks really good to me for default placement. And let's get our other hand up here. And this is going to be holding our barrel. Alright. So we got our default aim position. And now let's play time. Hop into that camera. And would you look at that? Go into preview and visibility. That looks very nice, very nice. And what we're going to want to do, if we haven't already, I think I did, but let me check because I didn't see it. Nope, okay. So, what's the one important thing that you need with a shooter? You're going to want a crosshair, unless you're a sniper, then in which case you zoom in. But in this case we have an AK-47, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a crosshair. So we're going to go ahead and place this like either on your puppet or your camera rig, it doesn't really matter. And we are going to, in the text field, enter less than UI target greater than. And that will give us a target, if I can, and that'll give us a crosshair that we can work with. And what we're going to do is we are going to remove the border and the border shadow and the background. And depending on what you want, you can have the text color be black, white, or something else. I want it to be white, and I'm going to size it down a bit by hovering over it on screen and then using the D-pad. And we're going to go into the alignment tab, which is the 4th from the left or 3rd from the right. And we're going to change the horizontal alignment and the vertical alignment to be in the middle. That's going to give us a crosshair in our dead center. Alright. And now, what we can do is we are going to put down a laser scope on here, but I'm kind of getting sidetracked because I wanted to see the target in play mode when you do this, but let's see here. For some reason I wasn't seeing the gun then, I'm not sure why. Oh well. So now that we have that pose, what we're going to want to do is we're going to get a timeline out. We're going to make it 10 seconds long. And we're going to place down a keyframe at 5 seconds. And we're going to make sure we're scoped into our puppet. And we're going to record the rotation of our arms. And that's using L2 or left trigger. And we're not going to be recording the position of the hands. And this lets us blend the keyframe. So if we wanted to crouch with our player and aim at the same time, we won't have to make a aiming animation for crouching, and we won't have to make an aiming animation for standing. And now that we have this keyframe recorded, what we're going to want to do is make sure our playhead is not on that. And we are going to go into we're going to turn our switch on for our default. And again, make sure that this timeline is turned off. Maybe rewind time. You lied to me. Okay. How dare you, keyframe. Oh well, it's not too hard to reposition our puppet. So go ahead and put your puppet back into a standard position. Like a standard walking position that your puppet came with. And this is just so when we are walking around with our gun, or without a gun, or with a gun, I guess. It's not going to look too weird. But I believe what we're going to want to do is split that part into the next part of the video. I might have to make this part a 2-part actually. We are covering quite a bit. But now that we have this timeline set up, we're going to copy this keyframe, and we're going to copy it all the way to the beginning. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to go into our microchip here and into our camera microchip, and we're going to set the value slider to 0. Because what we want to do is we want to be able to see how we're aiming downwards. So we're going to play time, I'm going to pause it, and then I'm going to change our aim down. And it would be easier if you have precise move on, so you can count the degrees and do the same on both sides. I'm going to do about 50 degrees to start off with. That looks like the right amount to me. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the playhead on here and turn on the timeline. Why are you not on? There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and take a look inside the camera, see what that looks like. That looks good to me. Yeah, that looks perfect. Okay. And now we need to do the other end. So go ahead and go to 5 seconds, and on our camera head, we're going to want to change the slider value to 1. And we're going to try 50 degrees upwards this time to get the up with a keyframe on the other end of our timeline. And if our camera got away from us, go ahead and play time and then pause it again. And then let's see how that looks. That looks a little bit different than our other positions, but it should be fine because we're gonna have a raycast come out and from our screen, and it's going to go down where our target is pointing, and it's basically going to get the hit position of where we're looking and feed it to our gun so we don't overshoot from where we're actually aiming. Then we're going to want to go ahead and reset our timeline, our aiming timeline, back to 0 or back to 5 seconds. And go ahead and do the same for your camera microchip. You're going to want to change that back to 0.5. Alright, and now what we need is we actually want to basically copy this over. So go ahead and copy that over now. Not the timeline, but the calculator, the value slider, basically everything that hooks up to this timeline we want to copy over onto the player microchip that we have here. And we're going to connect this slider into our playhead here. And again, you're going to want to make sure that at the very end you're going to hear that click. Okay, so it's at 0.5, 0.5. And now when we go into play mode, we should be able to aim up and down with our gun. Yep. It is a little bit different on each up and down, but unless you're a stickler for things, it should be fine. And we're going to want to get our laser scope set up now. So what we're going to do is we are going to turn the FOV on our camera all the way up. And we are going to make a target out in the middle of nowhere, basically. Make this pretty decently sized. I'm going to place this pretty far away. And you don't have to be this accurate if you don't want to. It's just I recommend being this accurate because it's going to give you the most playability. So once you have that done, we are going to take your laser scope, select it. We're going to use the grid snap to take the line or the arrow and drag it down so it's in line with your camera. And we're going to have that little ball come straight out of the camera, and we're going to have it smack dab in the center. And now we're going to extend this out to basically pretty far, maybe 50 meters. I mean, really depends on how big your map is set up. I'm not sure how much performance-wise that eats up, but I don't think it's a lot. Alright, so now we're going to go into our camera, and we are going to turn on preview and visibility. We're going to open up our camera settings, or not. How did I do this? I think I basically, let's go into our camera, And we know we want to basically paint. We're going to paint where our target is on screen with paint mode. And we're going to turn on surface snap in the guides. And we're going to change it like a bright red color. And go ahead and try to paint as accurate as possible on that. And then go ahead and go back into the camera, see how that looks. Alright, that looks fine to me. And then we're going to go ahead and see our laser scope and see how accurate this is. If you're happy with that, you can go ahead and leave it as is. But if you're not happy with that, having a hard time seeing if I am or not, because yeah, it seems to be, we want to get like right here where my imp is pointing, so a little bit below the middle of this, and we're not hitting that. So go ahead and readjust as needed. Alright, that's good enough for me. And then from here, this little cube that we made, we're going to actually start using it to get the actual aim that we want our gun to fire in. So let's make a new microchip, snap it to the side of our little cube here, and we are going to get a wireless transmitter, and we're going to plop it down on our camera, and we're actually we're going to make a microchip in here. It's getting a little bit crowded, so we're going to make a microchip for this, and we're going to name this microchip aim position. And I'm going to put this wireless transmitter in here. And we are going to put our laser scope in here as well. And we're going to transmit our... We're actually going to rename this transmitter to raw aim position. And this is going to basically allow us to have this processed by our gun, and then our gun is going to take that value and connect it to this cube, basically. Because our gun has the tag information that we need, which is right here and here. It has this tag, which we need that. Alright. Raw aim position, and on the third page of the laser scope, we're going to get a hit position, and that's what we want. And go ahead and transmit that. And then on our gun logic, we are going to get a wireless receiver. Go ahead and open it up, make it sure it is raw aim position. You, for now, since it's not multiplayer, go ahead and make the zone size to scene, and we're going to plug that into a node and make it we're going to make that node have no port. Now we need to wireless transmit one more thing, and that is hit something. And that's going to be the other output of our laser scope. And we're going to go ahead and get that. And we're going to plug that into our node power, the power of our node. And then the raw aim position we're going to plug into the node. And then we're going to get a NOT gate. And we're going to plug this hit something into the NOT gate. And then we're going to get another node, place it above the NOT gate. And we're going to change that to no port as well. And we're going to get a splitter. And we're going to split the scene space transform of gun tip forward. And we want to get the translation from that. And then we are going to get we're going to plug in the NOT gate into our second node that we made that has this scene space translation. Go ahead and plug the NOT gate into the power. And then we want one more wireless transmitter. And that is going to be aim position or processed aim position. Alright. And we're going to plug in both nodes into this. And what this system basically does is it gets the position that we're aiming at. If we are hitting something, if we're actually looking at something and we're not looking like straight up into the air, it gets that position and it will send it to our little cube here that we're going to be dealing with in a minute. And if we don't hit something, then it's just going to output the default position that we give it, which right now is a little bit forward past where we spawn our bullet. And this is where we spawn our bullet, is the gun tip. And that's what we're going to be using this for. And with our cube here, we are going to get a teleporter. And our teleporter is going to teleport to gun tip. And we only want to match target position and not target orientation. And then we are going to get that wireless receiver. And we're going to need one more wireless transmitter after this, unless you want to do a direct wire plug in across microchips. And again, you're going to want this to be scene, and we're going to change this to the aim position. Then we will get a look at rotator from our movers and output. We're going to open up the properties panel of that. Go ahead and get that rotation strength and dampening up. Turn up the speed a bit. And we're going to go into the dampening specifics, I guess, tab, which is the second one. Go ahead and turn the max distance all the way down, and then turn it up to 0.1. Then turn the minimum distance up to 0.1. This way, it's not going to look out any tags that don't have a name. Then on the third page, we're going to have a target position and scene space direction. Scene space direction is what we need for the emitter to actually shoot in the direction that we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug aim position into our target position on the third page of the look at rotator. And then we're going to get another wireless transmitter. And go ahead and name this our aim rotation or aim direction. Let's do aim direction. I like that better. And again, we're going to plug in our scene space direction into our transmitter. And this basically, this look at rotator is going to find the rotation that our bullet needs to shoot in order to hit the target that we're looking at, which is where our cursor or target is at, the UI target in the middle of our screen. Okay. And now this should teleport to our gun. Yep. And we want to make sure that this is non-collidable and non-visible. That way it's not going to interfere with us at all. And then we can go ahead and package up some of this logic so it's a bit cleaner to give us more room later. So we're going to name this aim direction logic. and plug this all in here, and then we are going to get a wireless receiver. Again, go ahead and make it scene, and we're going to do the aim direction, and we are going to open up the bullet emitter, and then we're going to go to the second page. In that scene space direction, we're going to plug our transmitter into here, and you can see that it's pointing up right now, and that's because we don't really have we don't have the rotator like actually working right now. So if we play time, now you can see that it's pointing forward, and since we are hitting something with our raycast over here, or our laser scope, it is pointing exactly where we are aiming at that. If we turn this off, you can see it moves. And that just corrects our aim, so it actually aims for what we are looking at. And now one last thing in this tutorial, and that's how to shoot. And that's pretty easy. We're going to make another microchip because we want to deal with... Hi, so you might have noticed a cut there. That's because this tutorial is going on for too long, and I'm trying to do teach you guys something complicated, and it's going to just make this take way too long. So that is going to be we're going to make this a 4-part series instead of 3 parts, and that part with the updated stuff is probably going to end up after the animation. So we're going to do just a simple thing right now, and we're going to make a counter and a timer, and we're putting this in a new microchip called Weapon Controller, if you haven't made that already. And we put down 2 nodes on this microchip called firing and reloading. And when we are firing, it's going to go into our start timer, and then the timer finish pulse is going to go into our reset timer, and the timer finish pulse is going to go into increase count, and we're going to change the target value to 16. And let's see here. Yep. And we are going to make it so we're going to get an AND gate, and we're going to plug in a NOT gate. We're going to take a NOT gate. We're going to plug in the counter full into the NOT output, or the NOT input, and then the NOT output is going to go into the AND gate, and the timer finish pulse is going to go into the AND gate as well. And this is basically what's going to let us fire. And then our reloading button is going to go into the reset count for counter, but we also want to not be able to reload at the same time as we're firing. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to make a simple timer right now. Let's say a reload takes 2 seconds. And when you start this, if this is greater than 0, so we're going to get a calculator. If our timer is greater than 0, the timer output into A is greater than 0, then we don't want to be able to shoot. So we're going to go ahead and get another NOT gate, and we're going to plug that into our AND gate. And once this finishes, we're going to reset the count. And this timer, the firing timer, we probably don't want to fire every 5 seconds. We probably want to fire every 0.2 seconds. And then we're going to make a keyframe here. And we're going to go over to our gun, and we're going to press that fire button. And we're also going to go over to our camera, and we're going to add a button here, or a switch here, and it's going to be called recoil. And when it turns on, we are going to do 0.1, and we're going to multiply that by our recoil amount, which is we're going to make a slider for. And I'm going to put this Y sensitivity into another microchip, because it's kind of clear, it's kind of taking up too much space. Alright, and I'm going to put this up here with our camera and our raycast. That's going to be that, and this is going to be this. And I might as well put the target text display in here as well. And we're going to multiply our recoil by a recoil amount. So we're going to get a slider for that. And it's going to be a 0 to 10 slider. And we are going to get a finer recoil than just 0.1. That would be outrageous. That would be an outrageous recoil. So you probably want 0.05 recoil at most. 0.1 recoil would be like just devastating. So that's what we're doing this for. So we're going to take a calculator and we're going to plug our button into that. And we're going to get another calculator, and we're going to divide by 10. And this is going to allow us to get a finer, more precise recoil. And we're going to plug in our recoil amount into A, and of our divide calculator, and then we're going to plug the result of our divide calculator into our multiply calculator. And so this is going to multiply. When we press this button, we are going to add recoil to our aiming up and down, and it's going to be multiplied by this amount. So I want 5 divided by 10 is 0.5, I think. So I want 0.5, and that's going to be a very small amount of recoil. Can we still looking up and down? Yeah. Okay. Ooh. Yeah. We want to definitely reset the FOV of our camera. Let's try making it just with 1, and then plugging this in to here instead. Let's try that. Okay, that works. Don't know why it didn't work before. Probably a frame delay caused it to happen, so it's probably a game glitch. Alright, so now with this keyframe, we're going to hit this recoil button as well. Go ahead and reset time, and then we're going to hook up the AND gate to the keyframe. And now when we hit play, we should be able to fire. Well, we got to hook up the fire button first, Neon. Alright, and we're going to go ahead and hook up the firing and reload buttons, and I want R2 to fire, and I want circle to reload. Oh, we're not adding recoil to our... We're not adding recoil to our aim in our animation controller, so we're going to go ahead and do that. We might want recoil amount to be a variable, but for now, since this tutorial has gone on long enough, I'm just going to copy it straight on over. There we go. That's still a lot of recoil. So let's change that down to 0.1 maybe. No, we gotta change it on both. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot easier if we just make this a variable. And Do we have the time for that? No. There we go. And you can speed up the bullets if you want, probably. Let's do 20. Let's double the speed, or somewhere around 20. Yeah, he's dying. Why is our reload button not working? It might be working, actually. I'm just not sure if it is. 0. Oh, it's not resetting. Oh. Okay. And, okay. Okay, yeah. We should be able to fire again. Oh, am I adding the muzzle flash? Is that getting shot out or something? No, it's not. Let's have it not ignore parent speed. See how that works. Okay. I don't know, that just looks wrong. Let's try this. Muzzle flash, let's go into here. And let's move it up a little bit, maybe. Oh, well, would you look at that? There is something wrong. For some reason, it is incredibly tiny or something. Or, I don't know. Wait, no? What is happening? Just trying to make sure we go through all the debugging steps before I end off this tutorial, because it's really, really long. Let's just make it bigger. That will work, right? That'll make it visible, right? Right, guys? That is, like, ginormous. Okay. Alright, let's try that. And I think it's because we are having that recoil, and it doesn't want to move up with our recoil. Ignore parent speed, so why don't we... Okay. Why don't we just move this up a little bit? There we go. That looks better. That looks much better. So we are going to aim at the head. Let's see if he gets hit in the head. Yep, okay. And one last thing I want to go over is you may notice that his hands are not cooperating with you. Well, you probably want to get rid of the arm vigor. Yep. And that's gone ahead and solved that problem for us. Alright, so in the next video I'm going to be doing animations like reload animation, the firing animation, and probably going into a rested state, and maybe even unequipping and equipping your gun. So, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. There's going to be at least 2 more parts coming, so I hope you all have a nice rest of your day. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye-bye. Bye.